What do you mean? I am learning how to drive. You learn how to be patient. So I just got out of the lineup in Tim Hortons there. And the lady who was talking or doing my order, we had quite a bit of a language barrier because she's really Spanish. So I started talking to her, and she said that she mentioned that she was from Chile. And I'm like, well, what are you doing in Canada? And she's like, oh, I have family up here, and you know, it's a little easier to live up here, which I kind of get, especially if you're coming from South America. But at the same time, I got talking to her, and I'm like, yeah, you know what, Chile's like one of the coolest countries. And even though there's like a language barrier, we kind of connected just for like, even if it was like 5 minutes, because I told her about one of my dreams is to drive the Pan American, and it'd be just cool as shit to go down there. Yeah, the first clip you saw in the vlog was actually like a back road. I was shifting in it first, and I almost stalled it, and the guy behind me got kind of mad, but whatever. It's just, now it brings back a funny story. Long story short, I bought this 4Runner in Sudbury, and I actually never had driven a standard on an actual road before. Last summer, I worked at a golf course, and all the gators they had were all standards. So first day I got there, a boss was like, hey, you ever driven standard before? And I'm like, yeah, one time in a parking lot when I was like 16. I ended up learning standard in like a half hour with my boss, and I always credit him for teaching me that because it's pretty cool. Fast forward like, what is it, like 10 months later probably, I think, and I just bought the car and I had to get gas, and I was actually driving into Sudbury to get gas. First time on the road ever. I never stalled it until I actually got to the gas station when I was pulling up to the pump for gas, and then after that it was just like stalling after stalling after stalling, and I had basically everybody in the gas station like cheering me on, try to get out of the gas station after I got gas, and it's just like, oh geez. It's just funny to remind myself of where I was like even like less than a month ago. Just always stalling, and now it's just, I can shift pretty good now. Except for that one time this morning, I guess, but you know. Science news time. I was going to try to avoid anything political with these discussions, but within the last 24 hours, we've had a single person in politics who thinks that their ideas are a little better than anybody's in the entire world because he's the greatest and best thing ever. Yes, I'm talking about Donald Trump. And before I go any further with this, let me say a few things. This is not an attack on the American people. I actually have lived in the States. I lived in Alabama for 5 years, deep south. It was quite the experience. I'm sure I'll have some stories for you guys in the future. However, this is solely going to be talking about the Paris Agreement and what this means for the United States of America and the rest of the world. Here are a few quotes from yesterday's briefing that Donald Trump gave on the reasons why he's withdrawn America from the Paris Agreement. China can do whatever they want. They can build coal plants and we can't. The three largest producers of coal in the world are India, China, and the United States of America. India and China are still in the Paris Agreement, and they're making progressive steps towards environmental sustainability like the rest of the world is. And unlike the United States, China and India are still developing nations that might not necessarily have the economic viability that the United States would have in order to transition from fossil fuels to renewables. In fact, India just announced last week that they were shutting down one of their largest projects for their largest coal production facilities in the world because of the drop in solar renewable prices, which is a good thing. This agreement is less about the climate and more about other countries gaining economic advantages over the United States. I'm pretty sure the other countries just want to have a world that's sustainable and have an earth to live in the next 100 years. But here's my explanation as to why it might not be a bad thing. First reason, regardless of the withdrawal from the Paris Agreement, it's still going to take up to 4 years to actually withdraw from the agreement. Now, we all know that in 4 years, Donald Trump may or might not be president anymore, so the actual withdrawal from the Paris Agreement is still up in the air. It isn't necessarily a bad thing for the globe due to these policies that are implemented into the Paris Agreement. However, it may put the United States at a serious economic disadvantage to not continue with the Paris Agreement. But it's also an opportunity for other countries like China and India or Canada or some European nations to step up to the plate and perhaps fill the void that America's leaving behind. You, the viewer, can also progress towards renewable energy and sustainable energy with the forms of perhaps using LED light bulbs instead of incandescents, maybe buying less meat or buying meat from a more efficiently grown area, or perhaps if you're in a city, you could use mass transit systems instead of driving your car everywhere. Ugh, rant over. I was debating on not talking about this at all, but I mean, the way that the world is nowadays, you have to talk about it. I mean, it's just. Bumping into stuff.
Okay, so don't do this right now because we're busy traffic coming up. I gotta get in and out. So.
She's very nervous about turning right into the right, that lane. I didn't want to leave the vlog on a political rant, so here's a bunch of montage of me driving from Huntsville to Barrie. We're in Barrie.